Empress Surath's voice cut through the vaulted chamber like a fleet commander's laser array, each syllable etched in the unyielding cadence of imperial decree. By the eternal compact of the Nalian Concord, I bind Princess Lyra Naserath to Jonah Hale of humanity and sacred union. This marriage seals the vassal oaths of the Outer Rim states, lest fracture claim our dominion. The assembled courtiers, silk-robed advisors from a dozen worlds, their multifaceted eyes flickering with suppressed calculations, froze in ritual obeisance, frills along their necks quivering faintly. Serath remained enthroned upon the obsidian dais, her armored robes pooling like spilled mercury, the weight of her marshal's insignia pressing against her shoulders. She scanned the hall, noting the subtle shifts, Lord Vexar of the Thalor enclaves inclining his crest too sharply, a tell of feigned loyalty. Ambassador Krell from the Fringe Alliances, dipping his mandibles in what passed for approval among his kind. Humans. The word soured in her thoughts, a fleeting crack in her composure. Primitives elevated by accident of survival, their envoy a curiosity dredged from some backwater skirmish. Yet necessity forged chains stronger than contempt. The rim worlds teetered. Without this gesture, their tribute fleets would scatter like dust in a solar wind. As the decree holograph sealed itself into the court archives, iridescent code spiraling upward, Advisor Thalen approached, her data scroll humming softly. Majesty, the records reflect your precision. Human customs dismissed as irrelevant to Concord law, no dowry rights, no blood oaths required. Their democracy holds no sway here. Thalen's voice held the clipped efficiency of one who parsed politics like battle logs. Yet the warnings persist. Vassal legitimacy hinges on this union's success. A dissolution invites rebellion. Krell's people alone command half our hyperlane patrols. Serath's frill tightened imperceptibly, a private signal of irritation. Warnings noted. Thalen. The throne endures because it bends what it must, breaks what it cannot. The chamber doors parted with a resonant hum admitting the human procession under heavy guard. Jonah Hale strode at its center, unescorted by his own kind, his frame compact yet unyielding in a utilitarian tunic that bespoke no ceremony, merely function. Nalian clerks flanked him, their scrolls flickering as they intoned his credentials in minimized tones. Jonah Hale, designated ceremonial spouse and emergency envoy, service record, field engineer affixed to a transient human unit during the Vale incursion. Logged interventions, structural reinforcements under fire, auxiliary system improvisations, deemed adequate for liaison duties. Adequate. Serath's gaze lingered as Hale halted before the dais, his dark eyes meeting hers without the reflexive deference of lesser species. No bow, no frill flare of submission, merely a nod, economical as a status ping. Court whispers rippled. Humans lacked the neural webbing for true hierarchy, or so the archives claimed. She dismissed the thought. Hierarchies bent to emperors, not biology. Before she could summon him forward, alarms pierced the air, shrill cascades from the perimeter feeds. Sabotage on the palace escort vector, a guard captain barked, his armor servos whining as he snapped to alert. Holodisplays bloomed across the chamber, the humans' shuttle convoy weaving through orbital defenses. A microasteroid swarm, impossibly synchronized, bearing down on the lead craft. Not natural drift, the trajectories screamed tampering, external jammers cloaking the source. Serath surged to her feet, martial instincts overriding protocol.
Intercept patterns Delta 7. Divert the third escort, flank, and scan for signatures.
Her commands flowed like fleet maneuvers, courtiers scattering to consoles. On the central projection, Hale twisted toward the display, his posture shifting, not panic, but assessment. He murmured something to a nearby clerk, who recoiled before patching the feed through. The human's voice emerged calm over the open channel, laced with an accent that mangled Nalian phonemes yet conveyed intent, like a clear signal burst. Your intercept's vectoring too tight. Compensate for the swarm's micro-corrections. It's programmed, not random. Reroute the third bird to 47 Mark 12. It'll flush the jammer ghost.
Serath overrode them.
Captain, confirm origin traces. The third escort peeled away in a blaze of thrusters, slicing through the swarm's edge. A hidden emitter pod detonated in its wake. Foreign alloy stamped with rival helix marks from the Zorath Collective. The chamber exhaled, the threat neutralized before it breached inner shields. External interference confirmed, the captain reported, saluting sharply. Zorath signatures, Majesty. No casualties. Serath's mind raced through vectors, Zorath probing weaknesses, testing the alliance before it solidified.
Exile the human now? Protocol demanded it. Ceremonial spouses unproven in crisis dissolved like mist.
Yet his intervention, unbidden and precise, lingered. Field engineer, the clerks had said. Minimized perhaps, but functional. She quelled the flicker of intrigue. Thrones thrived on control, not whims.
Secure the envoy, she commanded, her tone brooking no dissent. No exile.
Protocol alters. He remains under observation. Assign liaison officer Miran. Full monitoring of his court role. Every comm, every transit logged. Miran, a wiry veteran from her own fleet cadre, stepped forward with a crisp salute, her frill steady.
As you decree, Marshal Empress.
Courtiers murmured approval masked as concern. Vexor's crest twitching again. Stability first, sentiment later, but the human's gaze held steady, appraising her in turn. As if reading subcurrents, she guarded fiercely. A crack in the formality, quickly sealed. Princess Lyra attends immediately, Sereth continued, signaling the inner sanctum. Private debrief, the Union's parameters, the threats we face. He enters the circle under oversight. No more, no less. Lyra swept, and moments later, her heir's robes shimmering with embedded defenses, eyes sharp as her mother's but softened by youth's unscarred optimism. She positioned herself at Sereth's right, a deliberate echo of succession rights. Jonah Hale was ushered closer, Miran shadowing like a specter. Sarath leaned forward, voice lowering to command intimacy. Hale, your assistance in the intercept proves utility. Speak plainly. What do you know of Zorath designs? This marriage binds more than flesh, it anchors fleets. Fail and empires unravel. He met her stare evenly, no bluster, just the quiet competence of one accustomed to stakes beyond words.
Empress, I know patterns. Swarm like that?
Seen it in human ops, cheap psyops to test nerves. Zorath want chaos before the vows lock in. My record's no secret. Fixed rigs under worse. But I'm no oracle. Tell me you're bored. I'll map the counters. Lyra tilted her head, frill flickering curiosity, rare in one so schooled in reserve. Not presume to counsel the throne? Not presume, Jonah replied, his tone threading respect with frankness. Offer, humans multitask odd angles. Your fleets own the void. Combine 'em? Sereth weighed it, the chamber's hum fading to their triangle. Dismissal warred with pragmatism, his humility masked depths the clerks had glossed. Fallon's warning echoed, legitimacy on a knife's edge. Yet here, in Crisis's forge, a bridge formed unbidden. Very well, she said, the words tasting of concession masked as strategy. Debrief commences. Miran, log, every nuance. Lyra probe his claims. The Concord endures through such alloys. As they delved into holomaps, Jonah tracing improvised flanks with a finger steady as a targeting reticule, Sereth observed. His adaptations wove seamlessly, querying Nalian shield harmonics he'd clearly just parsed, linking them to human endurance metrics without fanfare. No arrogance, merely work. Vexar's distant whispers grew hushed, even Krell's mandibles stilled in reassessment. The inquiry into the sabotage expanded in real-time feeds, but Serath's focus sharpened inward. This human forced into her web might yet prove the filament holding it taut. Duty demanded she watch closely. Protective instinct whispered the same. For now, the decree stood iron, the empire precarious but unbowed. Viscount Rail rose from his alcove in the Grand Synod chamber, his frilled mantle unfurling like a challenge. By the edicts of Thalor Prime, ancient statutes decree that no union shall bind the imperial line to an unproven outsider. I move for a formal vote to annul this farce before it poisons our legacy. Empress Sereth's claws tightened on the armrest of her throne dais, the chamber's holographic feeds flickering with the weight of his words. Whispers rippled through the assembled lords, Ral's faction gleaming with predatory satisfaction, her loyalists shifting uneasily. Public annulment loomed like a fracture in crystal, one dissenting broadcast, and the empire's fragile unity could shatter. She met his gaze, unyielding. But precedent binds us to deliberation, not haste. The session adjourned amid polarized murmurs, the air thick with unspoken alliances. Sereth dismissed her aides with a curt gesture, her mind already mapping counters. Jonah Hale, the human ceremonial spouse, reluctant savior, lingered at the periphery, his plain envoy's tunic a stark contrast to the jewel-encrusted robes. He had saved Lyra once. Now, survival demanded more. That evening, the state gala unfolded in the crystal atrium, a glittering nexus of diplomacy where crystal spires refracted light into rainbows across 500 souls. Naline nobles swirled in ritual dances, their iridescent scales catching the glow, while envoys from fringe worlds sampled spiced nectars. Sereth glided through the throng, Lyra at her side, the princess's posture rigid with rehearsed poise. Jonah stood nearby, accepted as escort but eyed as an oddity. Too blunt-limbed, too steady in his quiet observation. A low chime hummed from the central dais, dismissed at first as ambiance. Then Jonah stiffened, his eyes narrowing on a serving drone hovering too low, its undercarriage pulsing faintly. "That's not right," he muttered, voice cutting through the murmur. Before Seraph could react, he moved, swift, unhesitating, snatching an ornamental blade from a nearby table and a vial of conductive lubricant from a diplomat's spilled kit. The drone dipped erratically, its payload arm whirring toward the heart of the crowd. Gasps erupted as Jonah vaulted onto the dais, prying open the drone's casing with the blade's edge. Wires sparked. A digital timer blinked. 017. Attendance froze, scales paling to ashen hues, but Jonah's hands danced, fingers twisting a makeshift probe from the vial's cap and a shard of crystal to short the ignition coil. Sweat beaded his brow, but his breath stayed even, multitasking the disarm with glances to evacuate paths, murmuring coordinates to a stunned guard. "Clear the east flank. Children first. 003. A final twist, and the timer died with a whine. The device, a compact incendiary, laced with neural toxins, went inert in his grip. Silence crashed, then applause, thundered, nobles pressing forward in awe. Lyra's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. Even Rael across the chamber faltered mid-sip. Seraph strode forward, her fleet marshal's cape snapping. "Secure the site. Catalog every component. Origin, alloys, signatures." Her voice carried imperial steel, but beneath it, a shift. This was no mere gesture. Jonah handed over the neutralized core without flourish, wiping residue on his tunic. Plasma initiator, rigged for cascade failure. Amateur fab, but the toxins military grade, traced to off-world synths. She nodded once, sharply. "Security review commences at dawn. All feeds archived. Dismissal of the human as ceremonial ornament cracked. Operational reality demanded assessment." Whispers spread. A soft-skinned outsider dismantling Nalian tech blind? Impossible, yet the evidence smoked in containment. By midday, in the Synod's antechamber, Seraph issued the decree publicly, holograms beaming to every outpost. Envoy Jonah Hale is granted temporary clearance to the restricted engineering vaults. He will trace this device's provenance under Imperial oversight. Gasps echoed. Vaults held fleet schematics, sacred to her military caste. Rawl's spines bristled. "Your Radiance, this elevates a foreigner to strategic necessity," she cut in, propriety fraying at the edges. Jonah met her eyes briefly. Gratitude, not triumph, and inclined his head. Respect stirred, unbidden. His competence was no fluke, but woven into his frame, like hers into scale. Rael struck back at dusk, convening an emergency caucus. His hologram pierced her private audience chamber, flanked by projectors summoning Princess Lyra's guardians, stern matrons of the heirs ward. "I subpoena these witnesses." The human staged the gala incident, manipulated the drone to feign heroism, ensnaring the court and our heir. Proof mounts, anomalous access logs, his unexplained tools. Lyra, present by protocol, flushed beneath her scales, fists clenched. The accusation clawed at the Alliance's throat. Guardians murmured assent, their loyalty to tradition absolute. Jonah stood silent at the chamber's edge, expression neutral, but Seraph saw the flicker. Patience tested, yet unbroken. She rose, aura coiling like a storm. "The subpoena is denied enforcement." Ryle's hologram flickered in outrage. "Ancient rights, imperial prerogative supersedes." Her voice thundered, claws scoring the dais. "Jonah Hale remains under my direct protection pending full inquiry. Any who pursue subversion answer to fleet tribunals." The guardians bowed, retreating. Rael's image dissolved in static fury. Lyra exhaled, glancing at Jonah with dawning alliance. Seraph turned to him then, the chamber emptying. The vaults await. "Prove the trace or Rael's venom spreads." He nodded, humble as ever. "Almeid schematics cross-referenced with galactic trade manifests. Your engineer's protocols are solid, just need to layer human pattern matching." She led him to the vault antechamber herself, overriding seals with a palm scan. Racks of humming analyzers gleamed, tools forged for Nalian grips, ergonomic curves her military wielded like extensions of will. Jonah donned a harness without complaint, interfacing a console. Seraph watched from the observation pane, arms crossed as he juggled 3 feeds, alloy spectrometry, shipping manifests, neural tox profiles. Hours blurred. Nalian techs rotated out, spines drooping from fatigue, but he pressed on, enduring, adapting their interfaces on the fly. Murmuring connections aliens chased rote. A match pinged. Rival state forges, smuggled via neutral ports.
Viscount's allies, Jonah said quietly. No accusation, just fact. Seraph's scales tightened. Intrigue deepened, but so did reliance.
This human, wielding her tools as kin, wove competence into her web. Duty held. Instinct whispered partnership. Yet Real's motion lingered, vote pending. She signaled closure. Enough for now. Guards, escort him secured. As he passed, their eyes met, formal cracks yielding to shared resolve. The Empire teetered, but in his steady gaze, she glimpsed ballast. Sereth's throne chamber thrummed with the low hiss of encrypted channels as the ambassador's holograms flickered to life unbidden, their merchant crests glowing like venomous eyes. Empress, intoned vexor of House Thalar, his frilled throat pulsing with feigned deference. The memorandum invokes the Third Codex. Ancient law bars xeno-unions that dilute the bloodline. Our houses withhold grain shipments until the human farce is rescinded, lest famine gnaws at your borders. She leaned forward, her armored pauldrons catching the light, voice a blade sheathed in silk. Threats from proxies do not sway the Concord. State your masters plainly, or dissolve. The holograms wavered. Behind Vexar, a memorandum scrolled, stamped by rival mercantile enclaves across the Veil Nebula. Keldari combined preeminent, their trade lanes the Empire's lifeblood. Rael at her side, stiffened, his mandibles clicking in suppressed fury, but she silenced him with a glance. The vote on Jonah's confinement hung unresolved. Now this, a noose of economics tightening around the alliance. As the projections faded amid protests, a guard approached, bearing a sealed data slate from the engineering vaults. Jonah Hale's work. Flagged urgent. Sereth dismissed the council with a sweep of her crest, retreating to her strategium. There, amid star maps pulsing with fleet dispositions, she activated the slate. Schematics bloomed. The incendiary device from Lyra's near assassination. Its microchip dissected layer by nanofilament layer. Human hands had wrought this. Jonah, confined yet unbound in ingenuity, had reverse-engineered the core in hours, what her finest tech mages deemed weeks of labor. Traces lit up, fabrication markers unique to Keldari forges, Worthen Fear and Pattern Seer might catch. Not palace intrigue, but external sabotage. A mercantile house stoking chaos to fracture the marriage, topple her line. Sereth's scales prickled. The human had pierced veils her analysts overlooked, connecting metallurgic echoes to supply manifests across domains. Ordinary, he called it. To her it bordered sorcery. She summoned her cipher chief. Dispatch a covert missive to Keldari Prime. No fleets mobilized, yet demand their envoys head and reparations. Veiled as trade accord amendments. Restraint now lest they scatter evidence. The shift burned against her instincts as fleet marshal. Show of force had quelled rebellions before. But Jonah's precision argued for scalpel over hammer. Target the root, preserve the optics. Her chief bowed, channels sealing the order. Word of the leak spread like plasma fire. By midday, the military council reconvened in the war vault, a cavern of obsidian where admirals' crests gleamed under tactical hollows. Raoul pressed again for Jonah's isolation. A human whispering in our ears invites rot. But Sereth quelled him. His findings demand voice. Bring the envoy. Guards hauled Jonah in, wrists unbound now, his plain envoy's tunic rumpled from confinement, but eyes steady. He nodded once to her, no plea, just readiness. Sereth rose, her voice carrying the weight of worlds. Jonah Hale of humanity will brief on the incendiary's provenance. Speak truth. The council judges. He stepped to the central plinth, fingers dancing over the interface with effortless multitasking, uploading schematics while modulating his translator for Nauyan harmonics, adapting mid-phrase to their layered syntax. The chip's quantum lattice bears Keldari etch marks, he began, voice even, projecting the dissection hollows. Admirals leaned in, crests flaring in surprise as he traced the impurities. See here, rare isotope ratios match their asteroid refineries, cross-referenced with public manifests. Not random, a campaign. They've seeded similar devices in 3 border incidents, per galactic trade logs. Raoul's mandibles parted.
How? Our mages scanned for days. Pattern recognition.
Jonah replied simply, juggling a secondary sim of dispersal vectors without pause. Humans chain disparate data, chemistry, logistics, even shipping delays. Your systems excel at pure quantum locks. We improvise bridges. He didn't boast. Merely worked, endurance plain as he fielded interruptions, resilience holding his posture unbowed after hours in a cell. Sereth watched, formality cracking like frost under sun. Competence raw and unadorned. Her counsel murmured, researching human archives on the spot. Queries flashing, endurance thresholds. Adaptability indices, amazement rippled. Voron, her chief tactician, queried aloud, your kind learns forge marks sans neural implants. Practice, Jonah said, humble as earth. We endure the grind. Respect seated then. Aliens probing not dismissal but curiosity. Their strengths, Nalian's unerring quantum intuition, complementing his novel links. The briefing sealed fates, reparations drafted, Keldari envoy summoned. But dusk brought fire, shouts erupted beyond the palace gates. Splinter faction, Real's hardliners allied with lesser houses, chanting purity or peril. Torches ignited barricades, plasma lances cracked air as protesters surged, guards clashing in pitched skirmishes. Holos broadcast the chaos, alliance optics shattering, mobs chanting for the human's blood, marriage branded heresy. Sareth's comms exploded with reports, gates breached, skirmishes spilling toward inner wards. Lyra's safety chamber loomed in her mind, the princess isolated by ritual, wards keyed to imperial blood alone. No time for protocol. Guards, she barked into the fleet net. Voice thunder. Escort Princess Lyra and Envoy Hale together, to the secure vault. Joint protection move. Her captains hesitated. Ritual forbade such mingling pre-union, but her crest flared command. The alliance breathes as one, or not at all. In the tumult, Jonah was already at Lyra's side when guards arrived. He'd slipped confinement during the riot's onset, intuiting the threat via seismic feeds her people monitored wrote. Lyra, wide-eyed but steady, gripped his arm, not as savior, but partner. Her agency blooming amid duty's cage, they moved as a unit, Jonah multitasking, scanning structural weak points, bantering calm to Lyra. Breathe steady, we've drilled worse. A protester's lance grazed a guard. Jonah yanked him clear, improvising a barricade from fallen banners. Creativity turning debris to shield. Nalian warriors nodded grim respect, their precision strikes meshing with his adaptive grit. Sareth tracked their progress from the throne heart, a drum of unyielding resolve. Factions tore at her empire, but in this, human ballast amid storm, she glimpsed stability. The vault sealed behind them, skirmishes quelled by her reserves. Yet as hollow feeds dimmed, a Keldari reply pinged, evasion, laced with threat. The game deepened. In the vault's glow, Lyra turned to Jonah, protocol forgotten. You saw it coming. Patterns, he said, checking her over with quiet care. We stick together. Outside, Sareth allowed a rare breath. Shared resolve hardened to steel. The Empire endured, not by force alone, but unlikely alloy. Sareth strode into the grand chamber, her armored robes whispering against the polished obsidian floor. The weight of counselors' stares pressing like distant thunder. The rival empires charge d'affaires, Thexar of the Clythe Dominion, stood at the central dais, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with calculated insolence. This union between your heir and a primitive envoy mocks the Concord's sovereignty. It invites fracture, nay demands it as casus belli, unless rescinded before the next cycle. Murmurs rippled through the chamber like wind over dry leaves. Elder Counselor Thren, his crest feathers quivering, leaned forward. Mobilization, Majesty. The Cliff Fleet's mass at the Vale Nebula. Strike now before their provocation hardens into invasion. Beside him, Diplomat Alara countered sharply. Restraint preserves the Pax Galactica. War over a marriage. We invite the Concord's dissolution. Sareth raised a gauntleted hand, silencing the fray. Her gaze locked on Vexar. You presume much, Charge. The marriage secures alliance, not fracture. Return to your masters with this. The Nalian endure. Depart before dusk. Vexar bowed with exaggerated grace, but his pheromonal aura spiked sour, defiance masked as deference. As he withdrew, Sareth turned to Jonah Hale, who lingered at the chamber's edge, his human frame unassuming amid the towering Nalian forms. Envoy Hale, your insights on their logistics? Jonah stepped forward, tablet in hand, his expression steady as he interfaced it with the chamber's hollow display. No flourish, just quiet efficiency. Their supply manifests, cross-referenced with palace outgoing freighters. Lines of code flickered, alien glyphs twisting under his touch. He had spent the night alone in the archives, enduring the dim glow without fatigue, multitasking decryption with pattern overlays from human field manuals no Nalian analyst had considered. Not random noise. Coordinates for shadow drops, right here, in the underlevels. The display bloomed, a web of illicit paths snaking through the palace substructure, linking to Clythe relay points. Gasps echoed. Thren's feathers flattened in shock. Impossible. Our cryptographers cleared those weeks ago. Jonah shrugged modestly, eyes on the data. It's fieldcraft. Humans layer decoys in transit logs, misdirects that look like errors. Your analysts missed the rhythm because they don't haul gear through live fire. He didn't boast, it was fact. Delivered like weather. Sareth's mandibles clicked once, approval rare and sharp. A spy ring, burrowing under her throne. Cancel the victory parade, she commanded, Voice steal over the rising clamor. Divert those assets to fleet sorties. Shadow the Cliff Vanguard at the nebula's edge. No engagements. Observe only. Orders cascaded via neural links, admirals across the system acknowledged without question. Public eyes would see readiness, not pomp, a shift that would ripple through the Empire's feeds by dawn. Bryn surged to his feet, crest ablaze. Majesty, this human decodes our secrets. He plants the very webs he uncovers. Espionage cloaked as aid. The chamber tensed, factions polarizing. Jonah stood unmoved, but Seraph felt the fracture lines deepen. Her own doubt flickered. Had she invited the blade? Yet his patterns held true, night after relentless night. She rose, presence filling the vaulted space. Counselor Thrin, your vigilance honors the throne, but accusation without proof dishonors it. Her voice cracked the air like a whip. Envoy Hale saved my daughter's life, unbidden.
He serves now by my decree.
You will integrate him into strategic briefings, or step down. Thrin subsided, mandibles grinding, but the rebuke landed public, etched into the session's permanent record. Jonah met her gaze briefly, gratitude unspoken, alliance forged in the glare. The chamber settled into tense discourse when chaos erupted. A side alcove vent exploded in a plume of neurotoxin mist, the assailant's cloaked form lunging from shadow. Blaster fire scorched the air. Minister Kale crumpled, his thorax pierced, pheromones screaming agony as guards swarmed. Seraph's blade cleared its sheath in a silver arc, deflecting a second bolt aimed at her core. Jonah moved like liquid, tackling the attacker mid-leap, his human grip unbreakable despite the assassin's armored bulk. They crashed to the floor, Jonah's knee pinned a joint, wrenching free a data lobe that spilled incriminating code. Guards hauled the writhing form away, but the damage lingered. Kale wheezed, med drones descending. Whispers of coup swelled, factions exploiting the marriage rift, spies turned killers. Sarath knelt briefly by the fallen minister, her claw gentle on his fading aura.
Hold, loyal one. Justice comes.
Rising, she faced the stunned council. This is no lone strike. Coordinated. Forensic sweep. Full palace lockdown. Every node, every shadow. Thrin rasped, Majesty, the backlash, placing the human at its head. The traditionalists will riot. Let them, Sarath replied, her resolve unyielding, formality cracking to reveal the marshal beneath. Jonah Hale leads the joint team. His patterns pierced the veil. His resilience holds under fire. Nalian analysts embed with him, learn, collaborate, or falter. She turned to Jonah, voice lowering for his ears amid the chaos. The Empire's heart bleeds, guard it as your own. He nodded, already scanning the assassin's lobe, multitasking wound assessments with data triage. No exhaustion in his posture, just steady focus. Human endurance weaving into her command structure. We'll root them out. Together, Ilara's eyes widened nearby, her prior skepticism fracturing into quiet awe. Even she murmured to an aide, query archives, human operational tempo. This defies models. As teams mobilized under lockdown klaxons, Sarath watched Jonah direct the first sweep, adapting Nalian scanners on the fly, spotting microtrails her best missed through sheer connective intuition. A Nalian tech paused, mandibles agape. How? The residue patterns. Cross-domain, Jonah said simply, linking chem signals to cliff freak bursts. Like tracking blood in sandstorms back home. The tech's aura flushed respect, a bridge forming. Sarath exhaled, the chamber's air thick with resolve. War loomed, spies infested the core, murder stained the stone. Yet in this human's quiet competence, she glimpsed alloys stronger than imperial steel. The council would chafe, rivals circle, but she had chosen. Duty demanded it, survival forged it. Outside, fleet signatures lifted toward the stars, shadows chasing shadows. The Empire would hold. Alarms pierced the command spire like shattered crystal, holographic readouts blooming crimson across Sarath's throne dais. Provinces Epsilon and Theta report depots overrun, her adjutant gasped, frills quivering. Rival fleets, Kryn syndicates, harry the trade lanes. Projections show cascade failure in 12 cycles. Sarath's claws tightened on the armrests, her empire fracturing before her eyes, supply lines severed meant starving garrisons, mutinous worlds, the whole concord unraveling like frayed tetherweave. Jonah Hale, summon him. The human arrived at a run, his plain envoy's tunic sweat damp, eyes sharp as he scanned the flickering holomaps. No bow, no flourish, just readiness. Uprisings coordinated, he said, voice steady, pointing to nexus points. They're choking your arteries. We improvise. She watched him, this off-worlder thrust into her daughter's betrothal by ancient pact law, his ceremonial roll a veil for whatever shadowed skills had pulled Lyra from death's jaws. Dismiss him? The council bayed for his head, anti-marriage faction foaming. But War laughed at purity. Speak, she commanded, propriety's mask taut. Jonah didn't hesitate. He pulled up depot schematics, overlaying human field engineering overlays, crude at first glance, yet they danced with alien precision. Defenses first, rig perimeter drones with cargo hauler grapples as barricades. Reroute convoys through asteroid shear zones. Narrow, but defensible. I'll lead a counter on Depot Prime. Small strike. Hit their coordinators. Her tacticians recoiled, frills inverting in shock. Heresy, one hissed. Central Command dictates. Results dictate, Sereth cut in, her voice steel. Jonah's plan hummed with motion, not the rigid hierarchies her fleets adored. She nodded once. Execute. Hours blurred into a frenzy. From the spire's nerve center, Sereth tracked Jonah's feed. The human darted through Depot Prime's chaos, barking orders to mixed Nalian squads in flawless trade tongue, his hands a blur, rewiring blast doors mid-stride, multitasking shield recalibrations while plotting infill routes. No fatigue creased his face where her warriors flagged after shifts. He pressed on, adapting drone protocols on the fly to alien specs he'd gleaned in days. Impossible, murmured Captain Vren, her frills paling as the holofeed showed Jonah scaling a depot wall under fire, jury-rigging a breaching charge from scavenged fuel cells. Humans, they endure like void beasts. And that pattern, linking shear zones to old mining charts? We'd commission committees. Sarah felt a crack in her imperial shell, warmth seeping through duty's chill. This Jonah, humble envoy by his lights, wove creativity where her doctrine ossified. The counter-raid struck true. Depot retaken, supplies flowing anew. Convoys snaked safe through improvised paths. Rival harassers bloodied and scattering. Yet the fractures deepened. Council feeds buzzed. Anti-marriage lords decrying barbarian meddling. Votes looming to void the pact. Serath's mandibles clicked in resolve. Jonah's measures bought time. Hers would forge it. She activated the Imperial Dispatch Array, her image broadcasting fleet-wide, regal mantle unbroken. By my decree, Jonah Hale's tactics hold our lines. Depots secured, lanes cleared. Local governors, adopt decentralized command, delegate as he directs, adapt or perish. The Concord bends, it does not break. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Decentralized? Her ancestors spun in cryotombs. Nalien fleets thrived on iron centralization, admirals chained to her will. But Jonah's way, fluid, trusting underlings' grit, mirrored his raid's triumph. Vren's eyes widened, researching furiously on a side pad. Human histories, special units they call them, pattern recognition across domains, engineering, tactics, even our biometrics. They learn our tongues, our machines, faster than juveniles. Sereth ignored the flattery's edge, crediting Jonah openly to shield him. The dispatch delayed the vote by edict, imperial weight-crushing procedural games. He serves the throne, she added, voice carrying to every prow. Spies would choke on it, rivals pause. Then chaos redoubled. A piercing alert. Princess Lyra, kidnapped! Shuttle ambushed en route to auxiliary command. Sereth's world narrowed to fury's point. Her daughter, heir, and alliance's heart, snatched amid the storm. Holomaps pinpointed the crash site, fringe district, crawling with uprising cells. Council feeds erupted. Purge demands, scorched world edicts to crush suspects wholesale. Punitive fleets, Vren urged. Frills flared.
Burn the nests. Stability demands it.
Sereth's claws scored the dais. Purges would drown civilians in plasma, breed endless vendettas, her empire's rot. Or rescue, risk exposure, split forces, court-martial whispers of favoritism. Jonah's face flashed on secondary feed. He'd pivoted his raid team toward the site, already coordinating with locals. The choice clawed her, family or throne. But Lyra embodied both, and as human, he'd saved her once. Duty twisted into something fiercer. Trust, forged in depot fire.
Halt all purges, she thundered.
Slamming the override. Redirect to civilian evacuations. Vren, deploy my personal guard. Secure the crash site, extract Lyra, and Jonah Hale. Guard him as kin. He is the alliance, we shield it. Vren froze, then bowed low, awe etching his scales. Empress at such cost? Factions will howl, decentralization, now this mercy? Let them. Sereth rose, cape swirling, her gaze fixed on the feeds. Jonah's team breached the district, his voice calm amid blaster fire. Flank left, use the vents, Nalian height advantage. I've got the locks. Her guards linked seamlessly, their precision meshing with his improvisation, plasma volleys covering human hacks, endurance meeting endurance. Lyra's beacon pulsed stronger. Surath exhaled, the spire's air thick with resolve reborn. Provinces erupted, yet she'd adopted a field engineer's chaos-taming art, defended daughter and human alike. Political knives hovered, council reprisals, rival emboldens. But in Jonah's unyielding stride, Lyra's defiant signal, she saw alloyed strength. War loomed fiercer, but the Concord endured, adaptive now, unbreakable. Deeper in the district's gloom, Jonah crouched amid venting steam. Lyra slumped against him, her frills limp but eyes fierce. Nalian guards formed a cordon, their rifles humming. "You came," she whispered, voice raw. "Couldn't let the party end without you," he replied, a human quirk tugging his lips, humor amid peril, binding them tighter. Above, Sereth watched the extraction feeds, her heart, imperial fortress, stirring with unbidden pride. This outsider, this savior, rewove her world. Rivals would pay for underestimating. Guard shuttles screened in, plasma shields flaring against sniper fire. Jonah hefted Lyra aboard, multitasking evac protocols with wound triage, his hand steady where panic would claim lesser souls. Sereth's voice crackled through. "Hail. Report Princess secure, Empress. Depot tactics held here too. Rerouted your guards through subtunnels. We're inbound. A beat. Well done." Propriety cracked, just a fraction, warmth bleeding through command. Vren sidled closer, pad glowing. "I've cross-referenced, Majesty. Human resilience, psychological, they term it. Optimism amid attrition. And bonding, pack instincts, bridging our divides." The council scribes note it. Whispers turned to study. Sarath silenced him with a glance, but inwardly amazement bloomed. Her doctrine shifted not from weakness but wisdom, this human's normal upended stars. Lyra safe, depots held, vote stalled. Yet shadows lingered, Kryn fleets massing, assassins in the vents. The Empire held, but the true test brewed. Sarath turned to the star map, Jonah's overlays pulsing like veins. Partnership, not pawn. She'd chosen well. Sarath's claws clicked against the obsidian table as the council chamber doors sealed with a resonant hiss. Holodisplays flickered to life around the vaulted hall, projecting faction leaders from distant provinces, mercantile lords with their iridescent scales rippling in agitation, provincial marshals whose frilled crests flared like warning banners. Stability had clawed back from the brink, but the air thrummed with peril. "The Alliance stands," she declared, her voice a blade tempered by command. "Speak your demands, or be silent." Lord Vexar of the Trade Spires leaned forward first, his multifaceted eyes glinting under the chamber's aurora lights.
"Empress, this human, Jonah Hale, saved the princess, yes. Gratitude is one matter."
Political entanglement? Our markets hemorrhage under rival blockades. Reject the Union, or grant him no more than ceremonial robes. Murmurs rippled through the projections. Crests twitching in agreement. Marshal Kree from the Outer Rims added, "Recognition risks fracture. The Vorath Empire watches. Legal standing for an off-worlder, it invites invasion." Sereth's gaze swept the assembly, unyielding. Jonah stood at her flank, his posture straight but unobtrusive, hands clasped behind his back. No human flourish, just quiet readiness. She'd seen his overlays on the star map pulse with strategies that turned chaos to order. Partnership. He'd chosen well, but words alone wouldn't bind them now. "Envoy Hale," she said, turning to him with measured formality. "Address the council." Jonah stepped forward, his voice steady, carrying the faint lilt of human inflections that the translators softened into imperial cadence. "Lords Marshals, your concerns are valid. Trade flows like blood. Block it, and the body weakens." He activated a personal holopad, projecting a web of routes that intertwine Nalian core worlds with fringe outposts. Lines shifted as he spoke, adapting in real time. Mercantile halls rerouted through secure relays. Provincial militias pledged to patrol lanes in exchange for tariff exemptions. This covenant ties privileges to commitments. Stability isn't decreed, it's forged. Your markets gain 20% uplift if we link security pacts here. His finger traced a nexus, and trade guilds fund joint fleets there. Vexer's crest flattened in surprise, a rare quiver betraying his calculations.
You draft us on the spot?
Our scribes take cycles. Jonah nodded once, humble as if balancing ledgers were mere habit. Patterns emerge when you connect the threads. Humans call it multitasking, seeing the whole while threading the needle. He juggled inputs seamlessly, querying Vexor's manifests aloud, cross-referencing Kree's troop dispositions, even noting a marshal's subtle fin flick of doubt and countering it with a tailored incentive. Creativity bloomed in the weave, no rote imperial template, but a novel lattice that honored Nalian hierarchies while injecting fluid alliances. Kree's frills pulsed azure admiration. Impossible. Off-worlders lack our synaptic depth for such convergence. Yet Jonah pressed on, reading the room's subtexts, the mercantile greed masked as caution, provincial pride veiling fear. His emotional intelligence wove through, forging bonds where Sareth's decrees might cleave. Minutes stretched, he endured their barrages without fatigue, adapting queries into amendments until the covenant solidified, a glowing contract demanding only their assent. Sareth watched, her imperial mask cracking with a flicker of warmth. He sees what our traditions blind us to. The covenant holds merit, she intoned, extending a claw to the central hollow. Signatures bloomed like stellar flares, Vexor first, then Kree, the rest cascading. With a sweep of her scepter she invoked the succession edicts. Lyra's choice is recognized, imperial law bends. Personal agency now tempers bloodright. The heir weds not as pawn, but partner. The chamber hushed, projections flickering with stunned silence. Provincial lords exchanged fin twitches of awe, mercantiles recalibrated their avarice into loyalty. Sareth rose, her voice ringing. Jonah Hale, you are hereby inducted into the royal household with full political standing. The union of Princess Lyra and Envoy Hale shall formalize before this court at dawn's cycle. Applause erupted in crests and scale shimmers, but Jonah's eyes met hers, grateful, not triumphant. A personal thread tugged amid the politics. His humility anchored her resolve. Then chaos struck. The chamber's vault shuddered as plasma lances pierced the outer shields. Alarms wailed in shrill harmony.
Vorath's strike force,
a guard bellowed, frills splaying terror. Drones swarmed through breached vents, their stingers glowing with neurotoxin payloads aimed at the dais. Sarath and Jonah in lethal tandem. Sareth's instincts ignited. She seized her sidearm, barking, shields to full, marshals converge. But the drones adapted, phasing through barriers with rival tech. Jonah moved like liquid resolve, shoving her behind a console as the first volley scorched the air. Your left flank, reroute power from the hollow relays, he shouted, already prying open a panel. His hands blurred, jury-rigging emitters into a makeshift EMP pulse, multitasking diagnostics while scanning for patterns in the swarm's attack vectors. She fired precise bursts, her martial training unerring, but admiration surged as he anticipated the next wave, humans' pattern recognition turning drone flocks into predictable herds. Their queen drone at grid 7, a finned assassin burst from the floor grates, blade arcing for Jonah's throat. Sarath lunged, tackling it mid-strike, its kitten cracked under her claws. Jonah's pulse detonated, frying half the swarm in a cascade of sparks. Endurance gleamed in him, no gasp, no falter, just relentless adaptation. Guards poured in, but the Vorath vanguard pressed, cloaked infiltrators materializing amid the council. Combined command, Sareth roared, clasping Jonah's arm in the den. You lead the coalition diplomatic channels to freeze their flanks, military to crush the core. He nodded, voice calm amid the frenzy. Mercantiles, jam their comms with your trade buoys. Provincials flank with your fast scouts. His strategies fused her empire's might with improvised genius. Humans' creativity layering alien rote into hybrid brilliance. Vexar, scales paling in shock, relayed orders. Kree's troops executed with renewed vigor. Jonah coordinated it all, reading alien body language for morale dips, bonding the chaos with quick encouragements that bridged species rifts. We've got this together. The battle whirled in sensory storm. Ozone tang, chitin cracks, the thunder of repulsors. Sarath fought at his side, her shots covering his hacks. He shielded her reloads with unyielding vigilance. Psychological resilience shone, where Nalian frills wilted under strain. Jonah's optimism steadied them. One breach at a time, he urged a faltering marshal, forging pact bonds that turned fear to ferocity. The Vorath queen drone shattered, under joint fire. Sareth's killing blow, Jonah's targeting lock. The remnants fled, shield sealing as reinforcements sealed the breach. Silence fell, broken only by heaving breaths and flickering holos. Sareth straightened, blood-flecked but unbroken, her gaze locking on Jonah. Lyra rushed from the wings, eyes wide with relief and resolve. The council stared, crests bowed low. Vexor murmured, "This human, he threads empires as we thread skies." Kree nodded, researching furiously on his pad. Human histories of endurance, adaptability. The ordinary feats that redefined extraordinary. Victory is ours, Serath proclaimed, voice resonant. Jonah Hale and Princess Lyra, you embody the new edict, agency allied with duty. She extended her scepter, sharing its authority in a gesture ancient as the stars. Rule with me, as equals. The Concord endures not by blood alone, but by such bonds. Jonah bowed slightly, Lyra at his side, their hands clasping across divides. Serath felt the crack widen into light, formal walls yielding to connection. She'd been born to rule, her strength imperial. But true power, it was this, finding an equal amid the storm.